over here. I'll be over here. And hip in the middle over there. All right. So I'm going to give Coach Kerr the microphone, and then if you have a question, find one of them, raise your hand, and ask the question, and then we'll have Coach Kerr or Matt respond.
All right.
Who's going to start? You got to have some.
Okay, while we're waiting, somebody's going to get their courage up. Here we go. Before we get started, let me just say one thing. If you want to learn more about gun safety, gun violence, things we can do, there's 3 organizations that really are at the forefront of this. It's the Brady Campaign, named after Jim Brady, who was President Reagan's press secretary. He was shot in 1982, I believe it was. Wonderful organization. You go to their website, you can learn everything you need to know. Also, the Giffords Campaign, named after Gabby Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly. And then also Everytown USA, Michael Bloomberg's organization. Those 3 are really, if you want to learn more, go to those websites and you can really learn everything you want to know about this issue. You had a question? And marchforourlives.com. Nice. Yes, right here.
My name is Margaret Rollins. I'm a student at Newark Memorial High School. And I would like to say I'm really, really thankful that you're here right now. Like, I hug you if I could. And like,
come on, bring it in. Let's go. Okay.
My question to you is, what other actions are you going to take to help put an end to gun violence? So we don't have any more like tragedies like in Florida and Sandy Hook, and like, what else are you going to do? Because you've got a voice that people can hear. Like, we all love you. Like, or a good chunk of us love you because you're our coach. Like, so you've got a bunch of us here to see you on a Monday. We didn't have school. What else are you gonna do to like help us help the world?
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
It's a good question. What would you like me to do?
That's a better question.
No, I think, but maybe this is getting to the point of why we're here. We all need to explore what we can do. To this point, all I've really done is expressed my outrage and my concern. I'm on Twitter. Some people who follow me on Twitter are really disappointed because I don't tweet like what Steph Curry had for breakfast at practice this morning. But I'm constantly tweeting stuff about gun safety. And so it's become sort of my personal crusade with the media. But I can do more. But I'd like to know what more I can do. Maybe I can get my team involved more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I'm open to anything. You let me know how I can help. I'm happy to help.
Right there.
Hi, this is Sarah. She's 15 and she's from here, Newark Memorial.
Okay, so uncared for mental health issues have been a trend in recent gun violence cases. What measures could our society take to ensure the improved treatment of those who suffer from mental health issues who may cause these cases of gun violence again?
Another great question. I think too often we just point to mental health as the issue. It's not guns, it's mental health. But what are we doing about mental health issues? Are we, as our government, funding mental health programs? We've actually passed plenty of gun measures over the last few years that has actually allowed more access to guns for people with mental health issues. So I think, it has to be a combination of funding mental health programs for people and also restricting access to guns to people who have those issues. These are things that, frankly, are beyond, my sort of, job description in many ways, but pretty basic stuff that we need to insist that our representatives take issue with and provide funding for and provide education for.
And secondly, may I take a photo with you?
Yes, sure. Real quick, we better do this quick.
Do you want me to take it?
Yes, please.
Next question, who do we have?
Over here.
Go ahead.
Over here. I have Elijah Izquierdo, a senior at Newark Memorial High School.
Okay, can I use that? Yeah, so I have a quote from my Chicago Tribune, which is an article that they write over there. It quotes White House Press Secretary Sandy Huckabee Sanders. It says, "I think if you look to Chicago, we had over 4,000 victims of gun-related crimes last year. They have the strictest gun laws in the country. That certainly hasn't helped them. So, if after reading the due process and how to purchase a gun in the state of Illinois, strict gun control is what we strive towards, why has it seemingly not done what we had intended it to do? Why has it seemingly not done what we had intended it to do?" Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Can I look at it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah. What I'm taking from this is we have stricter gun laws in Illinois. Why has that not affected gun violence? Okay, well, let's get one thing out on the table to begin with, which is that stricter gun laws are not going to solve this issue, right? But we want to impact the issue as best we can. There's issues all over this country that go beyond simple gun ownership, right? And we've got to address as many things as we can. And I think one of the tragedies, and actually Matt sort of mentioned this, is that the Chicago gun violence has gone under the radar. There's a race issue there, right? You get a Parkland, Florida, pretty well-to-do neighborhood that has a shooting. It gets a lot more attention than gun violence in the inner city. That's just the facts. So what we have to be careful about is, have you ever heard the term whataboutism? We have to be careful about whataboutism. We can't say, well, what about Chicago, or what about this, or what about that? And then we just keep going around in circles. And that's kind of what we do as a society right now. You got two sides, and everybody's stirring up, their anger. It's not about pointing the finger to another issue. It's about trying to tackle the issue and do the best we can with it. And there's no question we can do better, not just in Parkland, but in Chicago and everywhere else. This is an issue that exists everywhere. Here, Matt.
In respect to Chicago, they have really strict gun laws, but in Indiana, they have extremely lax gun laws where most of their guns come from. So to quote Senator Chris Murphy, we're only as strong as our weakest law at the federal level. There's open trade between states. I mean, you can buy a gun in Indiana and drive it anywhere in the country. So until we have stricter federal laws, there's no point really in having these stricter city-by-city laws, because again, you can trade lower in the state than Chicago and bring it back up easily. So they pass those laws as precautions, but at the same time, there's not enough measures being put into place at the federal level to really tackle this issue. And that's why we have problems like Parkland and Chicago and other inner city groups. Thank you.
By the way, he obviously knows way more about this stuff than I do, so. Yes.
Hi, my name's Lindsay Smith. I'm 18 and go to Newark High. I'm wondering, how do mass shootings differ from other types of gun violence, other than the size?
How do mass shootings differ from other kinds of gun violence?
Yeah, because I don't see much awareness on all types of gun violence, but then people speak up with a mass shooting, right, but not with other types of shootings, like murders or gun suicides, sure, all kinds of things.
Here's what I do know. 30,000 people a year die from gun violence in this country. 100,000 people are injured a year. The mass shootings are the ones that attract the most attention because they're the most spectacular, right? They're the ones that are the most traumatic, and they're the ones that end up on TV shows and on the front page of the newspaper. But shootings happen every single day. How many people die a day? 96 people die a day. It's part of our culture. Sadly, it's part of our culture. But it's the mass ones that gain the most attention.
So how can we continue to spread awareness even when these mass shootings don't occur?
how do we spread gun safety awareness even when these mass shootings don't occur? You guys are going to start that with the youth movement to make this a priority, make this the #1 issue for the people we vote for. And remember, it's a democracy, right? So the people in power work for us. So if we want to make gun safety and gun violence an issue in our government, it has to come from us. And it can't just be, the sensational ones. It's got to be the entire issue of gun safety. And it's really all the same thing. We're trying to get to the same place, which is to reduce the violence as much as possible. And that's through education and awareness and democracy at work.
Thank
Do you have anything else to add? Did I cover it? All right, good. I passed that one. All right. Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Abhishek Shah. I go to Mission San Jose High School, and I'm a senior. So I have a question about the direction in which the league is going to go. So after Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner, there was a lot of movement from players like LeBron James and the teams all around showing their support. So where's the league and where are the Warriors going to be in terms of Parkland and other gun violence?
I'm sorry, the sound is not great. Where's the league?
Yeah, where's the league stance and what is their approach to gun violence?
So the league galvanized around the Trayvon Martin issue? Yeah. And how is the league going to address gun safety?
Parkland and other gun violence in the future.
I'm going to turn this over to Matt because he told me a story about Dwayne Wade the other day. So maybe you can share that story. But I will say before I hand it to Matt, the NBA is already doing promotional advertisements with its players talking about gun violence. And so the players themselves, the league itself, is trying to do what we can. Events like these, and then individual players, whether it's Dwayne Wade or LeBron or anybody else, when they get up and speak, people obviously listen. But here's Matt.
Hi. So Dwayne Wade has become close with Joaquin Oliver's family because he was buried in Dwayne Wade's jersey. And so Dwayne responded by signing on to spend $200,000 to send Chicago kids to the march in D.C. and challenged Carmelo Anthony to do the same. So that happened like yesterday. So we'll see if that can pick up some traction and get more players to push kids to be politically active and to really learn how to be activists in the modern day. So that's pretty much what they said to me. So thank you.
So I'm not even going to ask about Hi, my name is Leon Lamborghini. I'm a senior here at Newark Memorial High School. So my question is, earlier you said that you don't believe teachers should be allowed to have guns. I'm just curious as to why you believe that.
I don't think that it's the right way to approach this issue. I don't believe in the old adage about more guns is going to make us more safe. I think there's an excellent likelihood that mistakes would happen. Can you imagine being a teacher with a handgun in your drawer and a kid walks in with an AR-15 and you imagine the panic? Okay, so let's say you get somebody who's trained and yes, what happens if they aim and shoot somebody else? Is this an issue that can be debated? Absolutely. In my opinion, it's not the right way to go about it, but that's my opinion, and I welcome anybody else's opinion as long as we're talking about the same thing, which is to protect the students. Matt's got something to add.
Whenever I get asked about arming teachers, I pull up a statistic from the NYPD. They have the most training in regards to firefights with guns. They hit their target in straight-on firefights 1 in 5 times. So let's say a teacher is trained the same way as an NYPD officer, and that's 4 shots in the classroom that are not going to hit the target, and there's 25 kids in the classroom. So that terrifies me enough to not want to arm teachers. And if they can pull out $500 million to arm teachers when they can't pull out $12 million for the arts, I really don't understand what our government's thinking.
I think I think when you turn 25, you got to run for Congress. You know, we need you.
Should just hand the mic to Matt.
Hello, so my name is Anthony Van Poel, and I am a senior at Newark Memorial. So I know laws are being passed to change the age limit to 21 to buy guns, but at the end of the day, there's other ways to get guns than from besides the store. So how can we prevent purchasing guns from outside, like on the streets, or from getting it for our parents? How do we change that?
How can we prevent guns from being purchased even outside of the law that are being purchased illegally?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to turn this over to the two experts. Again, I go back to the whole idea of this is a comprehensive issue, and we're not talking about solving everything in one fell swoop, but the more we can minimize the risk of somebody who shouldn't have a gun having one, then the less likely chance there is of something bad happening. But we're not going to be able to keep everything from happening. You have something to add?
I would just say, you know, Congressman Thompson and I were talking about how he cites that 270 felons every day are turned away. Is it more? 170. So 170 are turned away every day from purchasing guns at a federally licensed dealership. And so obviously the laws are working. They're turning away people who should be buying guns. The problem is they then go and buy them either online or they go to a gun show and they can buy them from someone who is not a federally registered dealer. And what we need to do is make it as hard, as Coach Kerr said, to get guns. Doesn't mean, you know, you can bring it to zero, but I'll tell you, other countries have a lot less problem with guns, and a lot of it has to do with their laws.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Just in response to one of the things we're pushing in my group is for universal background checks for all gun sales, and that includes straw man purchases, which is like, say I'm a criminal and Steve's my wife. If we go to a store,
it's a beautiful
husband. Sorry, and we're picking out a weapon, and I'm a felon. I can't buy a weapon, but he can buy it and sell it to me legally. That's absurd. So requiring universal background checks for all gun sales, including, I had representatives tell me, what if my uncle wants to sell my 18-year-old son a gun? I'm like, he should still require a background check. That's like, it's absurd to me that they're using that logic as like, I can trust my nephew or whatever, but it's not about trust. It's about just falling in line with the system and having a set of regulations in regards to who can actually own a firearm in this country, which is non-existent right now.
I agree.
So, yeah.
There was you have another question? Or?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
There was a great article, I think it was the New York Times, a few months ago, that compared gun safety to automobile safety. And apparently in the 50s, you were 10 times more likely to die in an auto accident than you are today. 10 times. So what do you think has happened since the 50s? Laws, right? Seatbelts, speed limits, child seats, child safety seats, regulation for getting a driver's license. What do you do to get a driver's license? Do you show up and say, I want a car, and they give you a car? No, you go through training, driver's training. Like these are such obvious measures that we should be taking, and for whatever reason, we don't want to take them so that the gun manufacturers can sell guns mainly. But let's take these measures. We're not infringing on anybody's Second Amendment rights. Sure. What we're doing is saying this is a huge safety issue. And if we've decreased automobile deaths by 10 times in the last 60, 70 years, why can't we do that with guns by enacting very similar safety measures and laws that are very sensible?
I believe we can.
You got one.
Hi, my name is Anish Mohanty, and I'm a student at Moreau Catholic High School, and I have a question for all three of you guys. One of the problems with gun control legislation is the grip that the NRA has on the Hill. And I was wondering what can be done to keep special interest groups away from influencing our democracy.
That's all yours.
Well, the question about special interests, I think personally we need to ban all PAC, lobbyist, and corporate money in our democracy. And we've started a no PAC caucus where people pledge not to take PAC or lobbyist money. But it's one of the biggest issues, not because most people who go to Congress, frankly, they go into it for the right reasons. They go into it to serve. As a freshman, I've realized that, you don't go up and say, okay, I want to go run for Congress if you don't have some sense about caring for your country. But the system forces bad choices. And if we just get rid of the special interest money, and now you can see you can raise money online in many other ways, we'd have a much better democracy.
Okay.
So my name is Hope Fernandez. I'm 18 and a senior here at Newark Memorial High School. This question's kind of open for all of you, but mostly for Matt. So young people, especially students, they're really taking advantage of the media and social media to kind of get their word out. So do you think it's important for the school and their staff to kind of support the students, whether it's in terms of letting them have rallies or walkouts or kind of getting out of class to advocate? And like, what else do you think teachers can do to kind of support them?
I think it's really important if you can find a teacher at your school to sponsor some sort of activism club. Douglas has multiple ones of that before any of this happened. So that's why a lot of the kids are outspoken and good at organizing, because they had those resources before they had to actually tap into them. So finding teachers to support those types of activism groups is really important. But if you can't find that, Congressman John Lewis told me that it's really important to have good trouble, that it's really important to just if you're doing something that is wrong for the right reasons, that it's okay to be confident in your justification of that. Like I've been told by multiple schools that they are not allowed to walk out, they're not allowed to march, and I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was like 500 colleges or something like signed together to say that if you are suspended or if you're expelled for this, we're not going to hold it against you, we might actually hold it for you. So I mean, the country knows that this is right. It's just about getting the mobilization of our youth to actually stand up and say, this is what we stand up for, we're not going away. So I think that in your own community, have those tough conversations with people that don't necessarily agree with you. Because at the end of the day, you can't really stand against this. This is about saving people's lives, and there's no reason to be on the other side of this.
Hi, my name is Brooke Brown, and I'm 14, and I go to Newark Memorial. I'm a freshman. And I really appreciate you being here. Can I get a quick hug? Yeah?
Let's get a bro.
Okay, so I know Newark's really small and no one really knows about us. So out of all the schools, why did you choose our school to talk about this?
I'm here because Congressman Ro Khanna asked me to come, and he was the one who organized it here. So here I am.
Hi. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Sophie McCarthy. I'm 15 and from Newark. Could the reluctance to change established laws regarding the age of responsibility to own and purchase a firearm be affecting our chances of preventing cases of gun violence across the country?
Sorry, it's hard to hear.
Okay. Could the reluctance to change established laws regarding the age of responsibility to own and purchase a firearm be affecting our chances of preventing cases of gun violence across the country?
Well, there's no question, and that's why we're here, right? That's why we have to talk about this, and that's why this has to become an issue that every person running for public office knows with your generation that this is issue number one, that this is what you're concerned about. Again, doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, Independent, it's up to you people and all of your peers around the country to let everybody around the country running for office know that this is issue number one. This is what we're concerned about, and this is what we will vote on. You're going to be voting in 3 years. So it's a tremendous honor to vote. And yet only 1 in 5 people vote at your age, right? Or not your age, at 18, right? So why is that? Because really there hasn't been that moment where people say, I want to vote because of this, right? We've been really lucky in this country for the most part. We've lived for the most part, tranquil life for most of us. But over the last 20 years or so, probably since 9/11, I think things have changed for all of us. Life has changed. Just going through the airport, security, that's changed dramatically. You're too young to know the difference, but before you didn't used to have to take your shoes off and you didn't have to do this and that. Everything, now there's more fear. There's more fear of being in a public place because of what might happen. So a lot of things that have happened should be leading all of you people to understand, and all of us, that we can change this, but it has to be a movement. It can't be 1 in 5 people saying, maybe I'll go vote. It has to be 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 saying, I've had enough, I don't want to get murdered, I don't want my friends to get murdered, so we're going to go vote, and we're going to vote you out of office unless you take care of this issue. Simple enough.
My name's Avi. I'm a senior at Newark Memorial High School, and my question, mainly for Congressman Khanna, is there tends to be a disconnect between people and their congressional representatives, especially amongst the youth, because we don't really know where to start. So my question is, outside of media attention and our voting privileges, how do we get our voices heard on the congressional floor?
I'm happy to answer that, but I'll talk to Matt. The question is, how do you get your voices heard? I'll tell you something. Matt and all his students at Parkland, they've got much more of a following than any of us in Congress. I mean, you got more Twitter followers, more Facebook followers, more media attention. So we're living in a democracy where your title doesn't matter as much. What matters is your passion and your authenticity. I mean, Coach Kerr was joking around that he was here because he's the Warriors coach, but I didn't ask him to come here because he was the Warriors coach. I asked him to come when we were talking after dinner because you could see this authenticity in his voice, that he cares. And that's, I think, what people really want in this country. They want people who are true to their convictions, and you guys have that. So don't be afraid to speak out. Don't go post on social media. Go on Facebook. Go organize, and you'll realize most of us folks who are a little bit older, some of my colleagues, they're scared of that. They don't know how to use all of those tools. And you have a huge advantage if you just exercise it. Matt, did you have anything to add to that?
The nation responds to strength in numbers, so whether that is going out to vote or going out to be in a group or the march or anything, just by creating a sort of wave with the people who are, again, like-minded and want to make this change the right way, that will get your voice heard. So if you are, something that was really powerful for me, there was a group that stood outside Mitch McConnell's office recently, and they were organized outside. There was a group of like 20 people, and they were on national news. So you don't need a huge wave of 10,000 millions of people to be heard. You just need a group of people who are loud and focused, and you can be heard anywhere.
Do I hold it? My name is Lily Hartenstein. I'm 17 years old and I go to Homestead High School. We're talking a lot about good trouble, but honestly, we live in a pretty liberal area, and our representatives like Roe and Kamala Harris are all pretty pro-gun control. And so honestly, in a lot of my efforts to try to change things, it seems like a lot of preaching to the choir. So what can we do in this area, even though it is so, it is much more lenient, or it leans much more towards gun control than the rest of the country? What can we do here to support Parkland and support the change?
I call it creating educated content. So a lot of areas that are extremely liberal have been reaching out to us, not just to say, like, we stand with you, we have thousands of people marching, 10,000 people marching, but to create videos and signs and things that can be communicated at every level. Most of the people in my group are artists. They're drama students, TV production students. They're people who know how to create content to be consumed. And so you can do that here. You can make a post that could go viral in any second, and all you just need is to be focused and educated and just create the platform yourself. Because the thing that's so beautiful about this march is that 90% of them are run by 18-year-olds, like around the age of 18, and most of them are being run organically, like not through our organization. So over 600 of them haven't even spoken to us directly, and they still follow our platform and are creating their content on an educated platform. So you can do that anywhere. And I know it feels like you're preaching to the choir by having that, but I promise you that the strength in numbers does get communicated across the country. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
We're going to have time for, I think, 5 more minutes of questions from students. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm Robert. I'm a senior at Mission San Jose High School. So I'm totally for gun control, but I know that one of the big arguments on the other side is that if we restrict guns for normal citizens, then criminals that really, really want their guns will still get other ways through illegal means such as the black market. So I guess this is like a question to both Coach Kerr and to Matt. What's your opinion on that argument?
I think the answer is that it's probably still going to happen, but at a lesser degree. And if it happens at a lesser degree and we save people's lives, then it's worth it.
I think that argument is the worst sales pitch of all time. They believe that they say if we make it illegal for them to purchase certain firearms that they'll still obtain them. But I mean, with an extensive buyback program and assault weapons ban, it works in Japan, it works in Australia, it works in England. Why wouldn't it work here? There's no data to support that argument, just like there's no data to support arming teachers. It's just another sales pitch. So the way that you respond to that is, let's try it and we'll get back to you later.
I'm Evan McClure. I'm from Newark Memorial High School. I have a question mainly for Congressman Rowe. With some of the failures on the government's part, such as the calls made about the student who committed the act, and the deputies that didn't enter the building while the shooter was still active. I know Coach Kerr mentioned semi-automatic weapons before, but do you think that we should focus on enforcing legislation that we already have or adding new legislation for more insurance?
Well, the question is, should we focus on enforcing the law or new laws? And I think that's a false choice. You can, of course, enforce the law that is there, but you also clearly need new laws about gun safety. We know that there are things we could do that would make a difference, like background checks, like making sure that AR-15s aren't out there, like making sure you don't have high-capacity magazines. So, of course, you always want to make sure that you're enforcing the law, but we also need common sense laws on gun safety. So I appreciate the need to do both. We've got time for a couple more questions. Hopefully we'll have them for Coach Kerr. You can always ask me questions. I'm your congressperson, but Matt or Coach Kerr, we got maybe 2 more questions.
Hello, I'm William Chesney. I'm from Newark Memorial High School. Even with teachers going through all the training and processes and think they need to be armed, do you think teachers would even be prepared to possibly shoot or kill one of their own students?
A lot of people point to the failure of the officers for not going in as a reason for more casualties. I point that to the reason that putting more guns in a situation doesn't actually solve anything. I mean, if these people were trained to do something and they had a moment where they doubted themselves, how can we expect a teacher to not feel the same way? How can we expect a security guard not to feel the same way? I feel like those arguments are just meant to say that we're not looking at the real issue of everything, which is the weapon and not the fail-safes that didn't work.
Also, arming a teacher, do you think that also raised the possibility of a student getting a hold of their weapon?
I mean, that the chance of that happening right now is 0, and the chance of that happening after you arm a teacher definitely is greater than 0, so yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kimberly, and I'm from James Logan High School. Just a question. Who in here remembers Kinder eggs, the little chocolate eggs with the toys in them, right? They were banned in the U.S. because they were a choking hazard, and kids were like choking and passing away from them. And then who remembers the Tide Pod Challenge not too long ago, the thing that went viral on Twitter? So when people started biting those and like eating the laundry packs, we started making them harder to get because it was harming people. And that's all we want with guns, right? How can the government take away Kinder eggs like chocolate and yummy treats and laundry detergent packs, but not guns, right? But I guess my question is, there's a lot of things going on at the national level, like the march and the NRA boycott. But my question is, what is the single most important thing that you guys think we can do as students in our everyday lives in this conversation, in this situation?
You should take it. That's for you.
I think it's to be active, to be proactive, actually, to get out there and encourage your fellow students during the walkout on Wednesday, during the march on the 24th, to vote. Again, this all comes back to the fact that we live in a democracy. And that's the beauty of what we face, is that we can change it, but it only happens if you're galvanized, if you're inspired to do so. You know, the easy thing to do is to fall back into our routine, and we're all human beings, so we all are creatures of comfort. We just want to go home and lie down and curl up and, you know, read a book or watch a movie or something. But there are times that call for more than that. There are times that call for action, and I think now is the time. I really feel, for the first time in my life, I feel like there's a movement happening. I truly believe that. I've never felt this way before, but I feel it. But it only happens if the momentum continues. You know, this can't be like Sandy Hook, can't be like Vegas. It can't be where, you know, everybody goes, oh my God, and then you go back to your life. It has to change, but it only changes if you get to the voting booth, if you get your friends there, and if you start to get again, I've said this several times, but this is the most important thing, get to your local representatives who are going to be running for office and let them know this is the #1 issue, and this is what they are either going to win or lose an election on, this issue. And if you get all your friends who are going to be turning 18 soon or already are 18, you have that power.
I always say to just be the most educated in the debate. So you can hear all these excuses that lawmakers give to why they're not doing action. It's so easy to just find out that little nugget of information that's going to prove them wrong. Because the fact that the CDC doesn't do research on gun violence is enough to show you that this argument is so one-sided that we've already won this argument of what needs to be done. If they're hiding information from us in a democracy, that is the biggest enemy of a democracy, is a lack of information. So you can't vote every day, you can't march every day, but you can learn every day, and you can be more educated on the issue and be the smartest one making the argument, and I promise you'll win every time on this side of the argument.
Let's give all the students a big round of applause. What great questions. You know, we're gonna take some questions. Heather will moderate for Coach Kerr from the media for about 8 minutes before having Congressman Thompson come up, and Congressman Thompson is the chair of the Gun Violence Task Force in Congress, so all of the ideas hopefully he'll take back to, and I know he will, to the colleagues. But I did want to say before having the media, it's great the Coach Kerr was willing to take questions from the media, and then Matt is, but his priority when he said to come to the forum, and Matt's priority, they both insisted on one thing, that the forum be with students. And I just want to thank them both again for their willingness to participate. And thank you, Coach.
Great. We'll take about 10 or 8 minutes of press questions. If you're a member of the media, please raise your hand and then give your name and outlet. Any press questions? More questions from the students? Okay, are you? Okay, sorry I made that decision.
We want Tony? Why don't you have Tony take one? Have Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Shellen, and I am president of the local chapter of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence for Fremont, Newark, and Union City. First, I want to say that I'm just so impressed, and it gives me hope for the future when I see people like you and all of you here, because we've been trying for so long to change this, but you have really brought this front and center, and I thank you so much. If I could have a minute, I would like to mention a couple of things. California has stronger gun laws than some of the things we're talking about, and what the Brady campaign is asking for is that we have some of the same laws on the federal level, because the Brady background checks has been in effect for many years, but what we want is to expand them and strengthen them at the federal level so that they apply not only to buying a gun at a brick and mortar store, but they apply to online sales and gun shows and every gun sale, because we have already prevented over 3 million people from purchasing from prohibited persons from buying guns. And if we had that as a nation, as somebody said, you can leave Chicago, go to Indiana or Wisconsin, you know, and buy a gun. No, we don't need a patchwork of laws. We need laws everywhere. We also want to ban assault weapons, which I think is a no-brainer. You can't buy an assault weapon in California, not legally. And the third thing is that I wanted you to know that we have something in California that we call the GVRO, Gun Violence Restraining Order. We already have this here in a few other states. This is something else. Sometimes they call it the ERPO, Extreme Risk Protection Order. If you know of somebody in your family, or if the police, the law enforcement can go and get a restraining order, even if somebody is not deemed to be mentally ill, but you know that they're talking about guns, you're afraid they're going to hurt themselves or somebody else, you can go, and it's speakforsafety.org. And one last thing I want to mention is that we have a hotline for students. It's called Speak Up. You can find all this on the Brady Campaign website. And Speak Up is a 24/7 hotline that you can call if you are concerned that somebody is talking about having a weapon. Sorry, I know I just asked for a hug, but now I want my hug.
What's that?
All right.
Over there.
All right, our last question before we'll call up Congressman Thompson. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Naya. I'm 16 and I go to Newark Memorial. And this question's for Matt. I wanted to know if the incident that occurred provoked your city to make immediate changes, and if so, what has changed?
I'm sorry, I missed the end of the question.
Out of curiosity, did the incident that occurred provoke your city to make immediate changes, and if so, what has changed?
In Florida, they passed a law at the state level to raise the age to 21. Then the NRA sued the state of Florida. So it's an uphill battle. I mean, I just think that the conversation lasting this long is inspiring change, but I feel like we have to keep pushing this past March 24th, past this election, through the entire political process to ensure that we get leaders that are actually fighting for us. So there hasn't been enough immediate change is the answer to that.
All right, thank you. And can I have a photo with Coach Gert?
Yeah. Come. Right. You want to say a few?
Can you take it?
I just want to say thank you for coming today, and thank you, and yeah, let's keep the momentum. That's the main thing. Is keep talking about it, keep educating yourselves. This is just about keeping yourselves and each other safe, and that's all we can do is try and listen to people like Matt who are going to get you guys going. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for your patience here on Fox News Now, a part of Fox10Phoenix.com. As we did some stream maintenance today, looks like they are wrapping things up there in Newark, California. I know that earlier today I was showing you the historic 2017 hurricane season subcommittee hearing, and then Mike started showing it to you for a bit. So I'm going to take you about 10 minutes into where we were and continue with that because it impacted a lot of people. So again, thanks for your patience. Thanks for watching Fox News Now, and hope everyone's having a great day and start to the week.
Where our shortfalls were so that we can do better the next time. We must continually try to improve ourselves. That's how we remain the greatest country in the world. For one, the U.S. citizen, and so some of the issues that we have found are the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services field offices in St. Croix remain closed. There are currently no office to process permanent residency and naturalization applications for persons without the means to travel to St. Thomas. And if they could travel to St. Thomas, these persons would need to wait an exorbitant amount of time for personnel to process the backlog of applications. The hardworking permanent residents and legal immigrants who continue to contribute to our economy cannot suffer any longer. Additionally, the United States Postal Service has released hundreds of workers hired to eliminate mail backlogs despite the continuing delays. Packages have been delayed for months at a time. I have specific cases that I've given to the Assistant Postmaster General regarding that. Mail has simply gone poof, disappeared in distribution centers in Puerto Rico. That cannot be. The United States Postal Service is a primary means of commerce in the territory, and that needs to be restored. The Army Corps of Engineers and Federal Emergency Management Agency, and working with the government of the Virgin Islands, has not completely provided adequate plans for plant and other hurricane debris removal. Mounds of hurricane debris, including appliances and scrap metal, are disposed of near public schools and pose real health and safety risk. Virgin Islanders are still struggling to achieve normalcy. We are now 80 days away from the 2018 hurricane season, 16 months away from the 2019 hurricane season, and 28 months away from the following. The only thing we are ready for is freedom from the long-standing problems caused by the last hurricane. Without adequate federal investment in infrastructure and other critical funding to harden systems like our energy grid to make them more resilient to withstand future storms, we will be in the same or worse predicament than we were following the last major storm, particularly with so many homes still exposed today. In the aftermath of the storms, I and Ranking Member Elijah Cummings wrote to Chairman Trey Gowdy in October to request a hearing on the federal recovery efforts in the Virgin Islands. We received several briefings from FEMA, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Defense. Today is our first public hearing on the hurricane's response, and I'm pleased that we are able to receive testimony from representatives of the Virgin Islands community and federal officials directly involved in the relief and recovery efforts. To better prepare ourselves for future hurricanes, I've worked with Congress to introduce H.R. 4782, the Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands Equitable Rebuild. This is the Marshall Plan we are requesting for the Virgin Islands. Additionally, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands allows the islands to use disaster funds to lay the groundwork for a more resilient and clean energy grid. I believe that is what Congress has been requesting. Both Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, as well as Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer, wrote an opinion piece together after coming to the Virgin Islands, who recognized that the Stafford Act must be amended to allow for resiliency in the hardening of our systems so that we can withstand the next hurricane season. Throughout this hearing, you will find that the Virgin Islands is resilient. Because of this resilience, she has come a far way since the previous hurricane season. However, normalcy remains out of the reach of far too many Virgin Island residents. And to stop it, the progress made is to impose on American citizens a substandard quality of life. Thank you again, Chairman, for having this hearing, and I look forward to hearing from our witnesses and asking pertinent questions.
Thank you very much, and I'm now pleased to introduce our first panel of witnesses. Senator Myron D. Jackson, the Senate President of the United States Virgin Islands, and Senator, and I hope I get this pronounced right, Tregenza A. Roach. He's a senator from the Virgin Islands legislature as well. Pursuant to committee rules, all witnesses will be sworn in before they testify. Would you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect both witnesses answered in the affirmative. Y'all may be seated. We do have two panels today. In order to allow time for discussion, I'd appreciate it if you'd limit your testimony to 5 minutes. Your entire written statement will be made part of the record. As you see, there's a clock on the middle desk here that you may not be able to read the time, but it does have a green, yellow, and red light. Much like a traffic signal, green means go, yellow means hurry up, and red means stop. So we will start, I guess, with Senate President Jackson. You're recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Honorable Blake Farron-Holt, Chairman, and Honorable Stacey Plaskett, Delegate to the Virgin Islands and Ranking Member. Mr. Chairman, at this time I would ask your indulgence and ask if the Vice President of the institution can join me as we have been partners through the process of our recovery.
Without objection. So ordered.
Thank you. That would be Senator Nareda Rivera O'Reilly. It is a pleasure to host the Subcommittee on Interior, Energy, and Environment of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform today in the Earl B. Artley Legislative Chambers on St. Thomas. On behalf of the 32nd Legislature of the Virgin Islands, we are grateful for the opportunity to testify before you today and this field hearing to assess the impacts of the 2017 hurricane season on the Virgin Islands of the United States. The double blow of two Category 5 storms, Hurricanes Irma and Maria, to our territory had a crippling effect on our territory, from which we are still in turmoil in areas such as healthcare, schools, emergency services, housing, our electrical system, agriculture and environment, and our cultural heritage and tourism industry. Without the assistance of the U.S. government, federal funds infused into our economy, and the hundreds of men and women sent to assist the Virgin Islands, we could not be where we are on the journey to recovery. Thank you to the Federal Emergency Management Agency and all the linemen, engineers, national emergency workers who have expended countless hours to work with our local officials, first responders, local and national military forces, volunteer groups, and others in the restoration from the devastating natural disasters we experienced last September. As it relates to our federal disaster assistance community disaster loan, the Virgin Islands is grateful for the financial assistance approved by Congress in October of 2017 in the form of $500 million in low-interest community disaster loan from FEMA, which will cover revenues lost and support the territory's hospitals, central government operations, and water and power authority over the course of the next 3 fiscal years. We are also grateful that Congress approved the $89 billion to areas impacted by natural disasters to include the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. It is calculated that the Virgin Islands may ultimately receive in excess of $7.5 billion requested for our recovery. We ask you also to be our voice as advocates in forgiveness of these loans so that the territory can fully recover and continue to advance economically as efforts were being made prior to the arrival of these storms. The most glaring casualty, of course, for us is the medical evacuees. The 2017 hurricane season has been very impactful to our health system. The territory as a whole was adversely impacted as we airlifted patients out of the territory. Over 500 patients were transported out of the Virgin Islands, and close to 140 remain on the mainland. As of last month, according to the Commissioner of Health, 43 evacuees have died. Under the current response plan, FEMA, the Department of Health, Human Services, the Department of Defense, all have responsibilities for medical evacuees. Hurricane Irma and Maria exposed the chaotic management of our most vulnerable citizens. This is a time that we need to consolidate the responsibility for our medical evacuees under one agency. That agency must keep a chain of command of each patient, including the names of the accompanying family member and an additional emergency contact. We cannot allow evacuees to be further stressed by this uncertainty. We must and can do better for our citizens as they are forced to leave their homes to seek medical services during disasters. Another area of concern is housing. A primary concern for the territory in the wake of the hurricanes was a response to our displaced residents. A prime example of this is the Department of Housing and Urban Development on February 2nd, 2018 announced it would afford the territory $243 million to help the Virgin Islands recover from the effects of the storm. The devastating picture of the Tutu high-rise and Lagoon Street communities could paint no clearer image of the destruction to hundreds of homes that were ripped open. No immediate emergency housing was provided for residents living in the devastated areas, such as the Tutu high-rise and residential communities within the territory. In the immediate aftermath of storms, temporary housing is needed on the ground. Other areas of concern is our schools. The overriding concerns in the area of education is the split sessions of many of our schools in the territory. In retrospect, we could have done better in collaboration with FEMA. I recognize that my time has ended, and I'm available to answer any questions the committee deems necessary. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and we do have your we do have your testimony. I read it beforehand, and I appreciate it. Senator Roach, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Farrenhall. Good morning, Delegate Plaskett, to your staff, to the people of the Virgin Islands. My name is Tregenza A. Roach, a member of the 32nd Legislature of the United States Virgin Islands. This is my 3rd term. Despite my office, however, I would like to speak to you as a private person, a resident who experienced both Hurricanes Irma and Maria firsthand, as a person who had to navigate the recovery process for my aging mother, whose home sustained substantial damage, and as a person who helped others navigate, which has been an arduous recovery process. Secondly, I would like to share my thoughts as a policymaker, especially in light of the fact that a new hurricane season starts in June, and in light of the information provided by many of those who study the changes in the world's climate and warn that more storms like these are in our future, more fierce and damaging than those we have experienced before. My mother is an 82-year-old widow who has her faculties. She tills the soil and harvests everything from pumpkin to guava berry. That is to say that despite some of the maladies that accompany aging, she is a fit and active woman. But for the first time in a hurricane season, I had to get her off the island for her own sanity and for mine, and was then left to take charge of dealing with FEMA, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Small Business Administration, insurance companies, banks. Immediately after Hurricane Irma, I was on a hunt for a tarpaulin to cover the leaking roof. None was available up to the coming of Hurricane Maria on September 19, 2018. I was able to secure covering for the leaking roof only because a colleague, Senator Alicia Chucky Hansen, was able to purchase a tarpaulin commercially and bring it over on a Mercy flight from St. Croix before they were hit with Hurricane Maria. I paid 3 men to go on the roof and put the tarp in place, but Maria came and pretty much disposed of it. Weeks after, the Army Corps of Engineers came on the scene and covered the roof with blue. The tarpaulin has leaked since then, despite follow-up visits from the Corps and a local contractor who they identified to the project. I simply gave up. Virgin Islanders are not begging people. So I, like others, simply gave up and deployed pots and pans at strategic places on the floor to capture the flow. As for FEMA, they subsequently sent an inspector who I thought was very thorough in verifying the damage. They inquired about insurance. I told them there was a policy, but no content and limited structural. But their denial letter followed and a check of $500. I visited their center, sat with everyone else, provided proof of limits on insurance, and then received my second denial letter. I can appeal when I finally settle with the insurance company, which has not yet taken place. The letters have been terse with no consideration for the recipient. The SBA project was initiated in October. The denial was also swift in coming. This is an aging population, both nationally and locally, and so I find it instructive to look at the impact of the processes on the elderly. On the many calls that I receive from the elderly, I want to tell you of another which illustrates the insensitivity of the process to wounded persons seeking only the assistance of their government. Another 82-year-old came to my office, a woman, with her 2 denial letters. FEMA denied her assistance because she could not prove that she owned the property in which she lived, and SBA because she could not prove that the property in which she lived was her primary residence. This is the case of a woman who had moved into the house owned by her father. She had continued to live in the house after taking care of him for 17 years up to his death. I contacted FEMA and posed the question of whether the woman could simply get a power of attorney from the 4 siblings confirming that they were all part owners of the property as per the will, that she lived in the property to take care of her father, and that she continued to live there with their consent and was authorized to access the recovery project on her behalf. The FEMA officials to whom I spoke said yes, but no one at any of the centers had shared this possibility with this aging, tired, wounded woman. She was on her own. As a policymaker, I think we must address the following: a more effective and timely process by the Army Corps of Engineers with roof coverings after a storm, a permanent FEMA presence in the territory, owing to the fact that this is to become our new reality, and that a permanent presence would mean a more efficient experience, particularly for our sister island of St. John, who can be cut off totally, power and communication, with the loss of a cable from St. Thomas. A federal approach to recovery, which considers the whole person who suffer mental health issues following a storm, and a process which is more timely. I thank you for listening to my testimony and await any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll start with you. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. So, Senator Roach, I want to first point out that I understand the issues with FEMA, having dealt with this from a constituent issue as well. I've spoken to FEMA numerous times and have volunteered to rewrite their letters for them, because typically a denial letter from FEMA is not a denial letter. It's there's something wrong with your file, and it needs to not say denial right there up in the top and big lettering. It needs to, it definitely does need to be more compassionate. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about housing. you've got a unique situation in the Virgin Islands with respect to housing. In the district I represent, we have hundreds of people living in temporary housing in hotels. But a vast majority of the hotels in the Virgin Islands are unoccupied, and filling those hotel rooms with local residents takes away from the ability of other local residents to make money off of tourists. How would, if you were president, or if you were the head of FEMA, what would you do to address the short-term housing need? It's my understanding we still have people in the Virgin Islands living in tents.
Well, I think I would offer a two-pronged approach. I remember in the aftermath of Hurricane Marilyn that there were temporary structures that were erected. I can recall at least two places on the island of St. Thomas, one on the east and one just adjacent to the Charlotte Amalia High School, which provided temporary housing. I think the other consideration would be how to make damaged homes more livable. The second part of my testimony, which I didn't read, which is what you have for the record, was a new program, at least new to the extent that I was made aware of it, on approximately the 10th of February. And that is a program that is being conducted under the auspices of the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority, and it is intended to make living spaces more habitable. And so I applied for that program on the 14th of February, I know because it was Valentine's Day. They subsequently sent out an inspector who I believe, actually a team of inspectors who were very thorough. I mean, they asked questions about whether there was hot water to the property. They asked questions whether there was any damage to the gas lines bringing gas into the kitchen. They asked if there was a working refrigerator. They asked about smoke detectors. They asked about whether the system had been clean, etc. But then the follow-up visit, I just found out on Saturday, they just passed the 10th of March, that they're now coming again to the property with an inspector. Now, although it seems to me that it's a very thorough program, we're looking again. I initiated my FEMA application on the 14th of September. I was one of those few people who had internet access, and I did the application online. The 14th of September. This is the 12th of March. And except for the leaking top, except for the $500 from FEMA, I think that sums up about the assistance. And I think the making the space more livable would be incredibly good for the mental health of the person, one, and two, particularly, and I always want to emphasize the elderly, particularly in the instances of the elderly, if they could stay in their home with just some accommodations to make it more livable, I think they would be in a better condition to complete the recovery process.
Thank you. Senator Jackson, we've heard a little bit about insurance as well and how long it's taking for the insurance company to pay. In Texas, the vast majority of hurricane system insurance is handled by TWIA, which is a state-operated insurance program, and believe me, we've had plenty of complaints about that. I'm glad I'm not in the Texas legislature. I only have to deal with FEMA, not TWIA. What in the Virgin Islands, can you talk a little bit about the experience of collecting insurance, and if there's anything you think either the state or the territorial or federal government ought to do to improve that?
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issues relating to insurance in the territory has been one of contention. Many of the homeowners have expressed their displeasure in the manner to which their insurance companies have taken them through the process of their adjusters, and likewise the time that it took for the adjuster to arrive at their homes. In addition to that, the issue of underinsurance continues to be a big issue here in the territory. Of course, education is key, and through banking and insurance, and several of the forums prior to the storm encouraging our residents to be much more educated in the process to which they purchase insurance, and likewise what underinsurance would mean in the event of a devastating hurricane or disaster. And for the most part, most residents here have windstorm insurance coverage. Very little have flood insurance. So as a result of the challenges that many have had with our insurance companies, we have had an engagement with banking and insurance in reference to how we can improve the process here in the territory and likewise protect the interests of the consumer as they are purchasing insurance through these companies, and likewise the fine line that many may not read in reference to the coverage, and likewise make informed decisions. Likewise, the banking community also has a responsibility to make sure that their customers are also fully aware of the process to which the banks and the customer have a relationship with coverage for their homes in the territory.
Well, I see my time is up. Hopefully we'll have time to do one more round of questions, because I do have some questions, but I do want to let Ms. Plaskett. I do have one quick question, though. It's kind of yes or no. The flood insurance here is the same as in the continental United States, right? It's underwritten by FEMA? Okay.
That is my understanding.
In FIP?
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Plaskett, you're up for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I did, Mr. Chairman, want you to know, however, that it's my understanding for most homeowners here, what the insurance that they need would be, in fact, windstorm insurance, which for many homeowners can run over $1,000 a month.
Trust me, I live in a hurricane-prone area.
Right, so that's the concern. Well. Thank you so much for being here. And Senator Jackson, so much of your testimony that you were not able to give that is written testimony is very informative, and I'm sure that the committee will have a chance to read through much of it. So the questions that I'm going to ask are directly related to your statements, so that you can get that information on the record as well. I wanted to ask you, Senator Jackson, about debris removal. And if you could, or Senator O'Reilly, talk about the difference between the debris removal on St. Thomas, which was run by the Army Corps, managed by the Army Corps, and St. Croix, which was managed by the Department of Public Works, which I understand. Could you tell us about how that process has occurred here in the Virgin Islands?
Okay, I'll leave Senator O'Reilly speak to St. Croix. I'll speak to St. Thomas, and that for many of us, it's been very frustrating with the process of debris removal from our neighborhoods, highways, and the like. And I would say that the early process to how we get to clean up our communities has been one of contention. And I say contention in that many of the areas of our communities still have debris. And we visited St. John yesterday in the East End, and I was aghast of the amount of debris that is still on the roadsides, in addition to utility wiring and some of the remnants of our electrical poles and the like that are littered on the side of our roads. The Army Corps of Engineers, in collaboration with the Department of Public Works, and of course the company Series, has been engaged in this district, and of course through the process of public announcements, which I feel in many ways have not been very successful, because if you don't listen to a particular radio program, you may not know the schedule coming into your neighborhood and the like. So there needed to be more underground communications with residents in terms of when do you put out your green waste, when do you put out your electronic waste and other items. And in some cases, residents have had to really struggle, especially our elderly, in getting that waste to the curbside in many of our neighborhoods, which has been very challenging for many of our residents, especially our elderly.
Can I ask, when did you first see federal agencies on the ground doing waste removal, debris removal? Can you recall?
Well, I have to be said to you that right after the storm, the Department of Public Works was mobilized.
This is a Fox 10 News Alert.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching Fox News Now. You are taking a live look at a protest happening in Phoenix. Being told this is actually outside of KTAR FM studios here. I'm trying to make sure that I pull up the right lower third for you all so you can be aware as to what's going on here. Being told again that Arizona Governor Doug Ducey is there doing an interview, and these are people outside of the studios. They look like they're wearing red. Could be for Ed, because I know that that was a movement last week happening here in Arizona. Trying to see if Skyfox can actually zoom in and give us some of these signs that these protesters are holding up so we can read exactly what they are there for. But again, we're being told that this is a Governor Doug Ducey protest there. This is about 16th Street and Northern in Phoenix. Don't believe we will have any audio coming from Skyfox, but let me check again. No audio from Skyfox. If you're just joining us here on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live, welcome. I'm hoping Skyfox can zoom in here so we can get a better look at some of these protest signs. Looks like they're right on 16th Street there. Being told that Governor Ducey appears every Monday on the Mac and Gatos show there. Working to get you all some more information. I don't have any direct communication with Skyfox, or I'd ask them to zoom in for us. But last week, Wear Red for Ed was a big movement here in the state of Arizona. Most likely educators out there protesting the governor. Along with higher pay, educators across the state are asking for a multitude of things. But again, unless we can zoom in here, everybody. Pretty large crowd there, though. Dozens, if not hundreds. It's exactly 5:30 on the dot here in Phoenix. If only we could hear what they were saying on the ground. But again, it looks like they are on 16th Street here, just south of Northern. Skyfox trying to zoom in there, give us a better look at what some of these signs are saying. Lots of sunshine out there today and quite warm. I know we got into the 80s. Some of you may have family or friends out here. Getting a little bit closer here, everybody. Skyfox doing their best to zoom in. If you remember last week, a lot of educators were wearing Red for Ed, and I think I see Red for Ed there on the top middle of the screen. You see other media there as well. Again, this is outside KTAR FM. It is a radio station here. They can not only be heard on radio in the Phoenix area, they do have an app. They have a statewide audience, national audience, because it is a news talk radio station. I know for sure there's dozens out there. There may be hundreds of people. If any of you have family or friends out there, let us know. Currently have 400 of you watching on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. One of our viewers saying they deserve more pay. They are educating our future. Another saying, bless our teachers. Time to change, Arizona. Our teachers need to be paid decent wages. They feed our children's brains. Another reminding viewers that most schools are on spring break. Support education, support underpaid teachers. Big thanks to all the Fox News Now viewers, a part of fox10phoenix.com. My name's Pilar Arias. Mike Page is another host. We do this Monday through Friday from about 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Arizona time. If it's live, if it's breaking, if it's happening, you'll find it right here on Fox News Now. Another viewer saying, these are the people helping build up our future leaders. Thank you, teachers. If you're just joining us here on Fox News Now, part of fox10phoenix.com, welcome. You are taking a look at a live protest here outside a news talk radio station in Phoenix, Arizona. Teachers are demanding better pay and benefits during a time that the Arizona Governor Doug Ducey does his weekly interviews with the radio station. So we are continuing to monitor the situation. Skyfox over the scene here, providing us these aerials. If only we could hear what they were saying on the ground. And Skyfox has tried to zoom in for us and get some of these signs that they're holding up. Looks like some cars are slowing down there as they go by. One of our viewers on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live says, thank you for standing up for our kids. Another saying, I am with you, I am with you, I support teachers. Yes, fight for your worth. Another asking our governor, where is the plan? Help our teachers. Another viewer saying, I think teachers are so important, like the police, paid low and in charge of so much. They have to protest because the teachers love their kids and show it. I love my daughter's teachers. They give so much while we work. We drop them off in the mornings or they take the bus, see them in the afternoon, and teachers are the ones showing them knowledge. Pay them and more will want to become them. Another saying, good for them. Most Arizonans are behind them 110%. Another viewer saying, come on, Ducey, fund education. This is the first step, and we are ready to take it as far as we have to for the kids of Arizona. Others saying, hashtag Red for Ed. Another viewer saying, support our Arizona educators. They deserve more. Another viewer saying, teachers standing together can make a difference. Please, Governor Ducey, help us help others. Another saying, all educators deserve more pay. There's for sure dozens out there. There may be hundreds. But again, this is on Northern and 16th Street, just south of Northern. You're watching Fox News Now, a part of fox10phoenix.com. You can always find our stream on fox10phoenix.com. You can also find it on youtube.com/fox10phoenix. If you're a first-time viewer, welcome. We do this every weekday. All you got to do is click the subscribe button and you'll be alerted anytime we go live. For those of you not in the state of Arizona, KTAR News is a radio station. It's a news talk format. Serves the Phoenix area, but again, they do have an app and they stream on their website, so lots of nationwide listeners there. They are owned by Bonneville International Corporation. We have a teacher chiming in on the Fox News Now stream on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live saying, I am a national board certified teacher with a master's degree who has taught in 3 states. Not only did I take a huge cut in pay to teach in Arizona, I've also never felt as disrespected and as undervalued as I do now. Teachers deserve a livable wage. Teachers and students deserve a fully funded classroom. We deserve affordable health care. Teachers and students deserve smaller class sizes. We wear hashtag Red for Ed because these things matter. Thank you to everybody for not just watching, but chiming in. If you are a teacher or you know somebody who is, whether it's K through 12 or even, college, share this stream. Let them all watch alongside you and let's talk about it. You're watching Fox News Now, part of fox10phoenix.com. A lot of hashtag Red for Ed coming up in the comments. A lot of people on the other side of this argument, though. One is saying the military received a 1% increase this year compared to the 4% increase the teachers in Arizona received. Another viewer commenting, I'm at my desk right now doing my schoolwork to become an educator, knowing full well the system I will soon enter is in shambles because I believe in the children, but I also believe I should not have to sacrifice my home, my family, and my financial future to teach. The flip side of the coin here, teachers deserve nothing more than any other citizen, freedom and liberty. Another saying, you know what you are getting paid before you go in. Don't like it? Don't sign the contract. Wow, getting very personal here. One viewer saying, I've been teaching 15 years and make $39,000. I'm grading now during my spring break. Another supporter saying, good job, Arizona teachers. You deserve so much more. STEM teacher chiming in, saying all funding stripped, parents and teachers pay all fees. Ducey did it. Again, Arizona's governor is Doug Ducey, and he does have a Monday evening segment there on the Mac and Gato show at KTAR News. Another person saying that they are making a correction to a previous comment. In all caps here, Arizona teachers received a 1% increase. Get your facts straight. We appreciate the civil conversation here, the dialogue. Fox News Now viewers. My name's Pilar Arias. I'm a host here. Mike Pace is another. If it's live, if it's breaking, you can find it here on our stream, Fox News Now, a part of fox10phoenix.com. A viewer from Cincinnati, Ohio saying, go teachers. This is a heated topic for a lot of people. A lot of people commenting, getting very personal, telling us their salaries. More than 500 of you currently watching on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. A lot of supporters, yet the flip side of the coin, people against giving teachers a raise and better benefits on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. One viewer saying teachers also get a lot of, quote, professional development, end quote, days. If anything, they are overcompensated when you add it all up. Another saying it's quite simple. Don't like what you get paid, find a new job. If you don't want to do that, then quit complaining. Another viewer saying Arizona teachers make less than most other state teachers and cost of living does not equate. We are required to pay more into retirement than a majority of states, greater than 11% in parentheses. So our take home is in the top 5 lowest in the nation. Continuing to keep an eye on this protest thanks to Sky Fox there, happening on Northern and 16th Street. Everybody being quite civil during this discussion. One person saying, for all the comments that we teachers only work 8 to 9 months, please do your research, or maybe life a day in, I can't quite follow that one, or maybe life a day in our summer lives. Live a day in our summer lives could be what she was trying to say there. Very heated conversation here. One person asking who would be against giving teachers a raise. Another saying most of you teachers make more a year than correctional officers in Arizona. .600 of you currently watching the stream on the Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. Welcome to Fox News Now, a part of fox10phoenix.com. Going to take a comment now from the YouTube stream, everybody. That's the permanent home of News Now. You can always find us on fox10phoenix.com and youtube.com/fox10phoenix. We have a viewer from England asking, how much do teachers earn over in the USA? Any of you educators out there can answer the national average, perhaps, versus the state average? Thanks for your comments. Speaking of our worldwide audience here on News Now, some people are starting to tell us where they're watching our stream from. One person saying, come to California and we will treat you better. It's got to be in response to educators there. Another saying, hello from Australia. Teachers in Australia always have it better. Somebody commented with 38,000. I'm not quite sure if that's a national average or the Arizona average. Some people chiming in as to why they wear red for ed. One viewer saying our children deserve highly qualified teachers in all classrooms. The future of Arizona deserves fully funded classrooms, full-time counselors, and smaller class sizes. And we deserve professional pay, affordable health care for our families, and respect for developing the minds of past, present, and future generations. A new hashtag I've never seen before, AZ, what's the plan? And you see all the media crews showing up there to get their story. Be sure to stay tuned in to Fox 10 Phoenix so you can get the latest on this story. Someone chiming in here, the national average is about 65,000. Thanks so much for answering my question. Appreciate that. Like I said, a lot of people, deciding to be very personal here. One saying, I'm a 7-year teacher earning the same as a first-year teacher. Another saying, Arizona average is $40K versus national $56,000, give or take. If only we could hear what they're saying there on the ground. A viewer from Texas saying, from the great state of Texas, teachers deserve more. Oh, another saying, they are chanting living wage. Someone pointing out that Tucson has a massive shortage. So many teachers are students that just started a teaching program. Parents should be outraged. Looks like they're wrapping up out there, everybody. So we may be switching gears here any moment now. Again, my name is Pilar Arias. Thanks so much for watching Fox News Now, a part of Fox 10 Phoenix. Appreciate all the civil comments and the discussion that we just had. Be sure to stay tuned in to Fox 10 Phoenix for more later on this evening. All right, those of you still with us, let's lighten the mood a little bit. What do you say? Taking you live now to the Santa Monica Pier in California, Southern California, and it looks like a gorgeous summer day out there. I just wish I was out there on the Ferris wheel or the roller coaster or that thing that takes you up and drops you that we just saw. But I mean, look at this. Doesn't even look like it's March out there, you know, late winter, early spring. What are the weather conditions like where you live? Is it spring-like? Is it summer-like? Share with me. And thank you all for your patience today while we did our stream maintenance. We were off the air for a little bit, but we're back with you now. We're going to wrap up the evening. Let's show you Southern California versus Northern California. This is currently the conditions in San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. Now that California sprung forward on the same time that we are here in Arizona, it's almost 6 p.m. So quitting time for a lot of folks, a lot of people heading home, and fog off and on. Looks like it might currently be raining there though. So again, thanks so much for watching Fox News Now, a part of Fox10Phoenix.com. Hoping my illness here clears up pretty soon because I got to cover for Mike starting Thursday, right everybody? All right, let's take you back out to that hearing we were listening to in regards to the historic 2017 hurricane season. Again, thanks for being with us.
If you would tell us what, with respect to the federal response, if you would give us what you think the best they've done is and the worst, or a suggestion for improvement where we need to focus primarily on improvement, because I'm one of these people who believes if you're going to criticize something, you also need to say something good or have a suggestion for fixing it. So I'll give each of our folks a chance to do that. Senator Roach, senator's an ambiguous term here, I guess.
Well, I would say I would echo the delegate in recognizing that the assistance provided by the federal government is valuable and useful, and that the people who came to assist with the process, the people who left their homes and their families to come here and spend time with us in a very difficult moment. And so I think we definitely would have to be appreciative of that. I think one of the programs that I got the least complaints about was the food, the SNAP emergency disaster funding. But as a thought on how we could improve going forward, I really believe that the people involved in the process have to be more sensitive to what we are experiencing here, and to be mindful of the fact that we are living in a place that is going to be exposed to more of these storms. We're living in a place that has, if not the highest, certainly one of the highest costs of living under the United States flag, and that construction costs and food costs are not what they imagine them to be. And if they approach it with that kind of information and with that sensitivity, I think the process can be improved for everyone.
All right. Senator Jackson, you want to take the same question?
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Senator Roach stated in reference to the aid that the FEMA disaster has provided to the territory and their response to the territory, we are grateful. I think the areas that I would like to see improved is that how do you deal with territories during a natural disaster? Of course, we're separated by water by thousands of miles. The protocols that were put in place, for example, for the storage of emergency goods in Puerto Rico, we can all say that that's a failure. And that likewise the Virgin Islands was impacted by these two hurricanes, and that Puerto Rico also was severely impacted, and that the ability to provision the U.S. Virgin Islands became even more so challenging. In areas, for example, hurricane zone like the Virgin Islands or the Caribbean, but specifically to the Virgin Islands, the loss of roofing material is going to be the greatest impact that you would have from storms and infrastructure. And the issues relating to not having available tops in the territory to sufficiently cover our people during these storms is an area that we should improve in terms of how do we take care of the population. One of the areas also was food security. Many of the meals ready to eat coming into the ground is understandable as you address the immediate recovery or response to the community. But then at the same time, who makes those decisions in terms of what meals, whether they're culturally sensitive? So the Red Cross stepped up to the place, as well as individuals like Tim Duncan that provided wholesome meals to our community versus meals ready to eat and snacks in boxes. So the nutritional health of our community is really very important. And I think those were areas that FEMA could do better in, and likewise the response on the ground in getting the professionals into the territory. For example, we've been advocating for the impact of cultural resources, and only most recently professionals have come into the territory to assist entities in this regard of our cultural institutions, our libraries, our museums, cultural heritage sites, and the like. And those are just some examples that I provide to you, Mr. Chairman, that we could do improvement in.
And Senator Rivera O'Reilly, do you want to take a stab at that one as well?
I'd like to. Thank you so very much. I think that shelter, water, and food are essential in the immediate response. We felt very comforted by the presence of the military, and we are so thankful. As soon as military trucks were on the ground, in collaboration with our National Guard, it gave our citizens a sense that they were being taken care of. There were truckloads moving across the islands filled with water and MREs, and I am so grateful. I am so grateful for that. There are a number of areas that I believe can be improved. I urge you to consider the increase in the reimbursement rates under CMS for Medicare and Medicaid. It will help our hospitals significantly to remain operational. I also urge you to look at the manner in which the Army Corps of Engineers rolls out their Blue Roof program. It is designed for stateside housing, for stateside roofs, not Caribbean construction. And so when they came out and installed the blue roofs, what they did was cause greater damage to the roofs. So where there was one leak after the blue roof was installed and residents expected there would be no leak, there were multiple leaks. I also would like to recommend that when FEMA comes to the ground, that it comes with its own pods, that it brings its own shelters, because they have saturated the remaining hotel rooms in the territory. What that did was that it inhibited and it impeded adjusters from coming to the territory because there was no housing. So all of your federal personnel completely saturate the remaining hotel rooms, also limiting hotel rooms for the tourist. I will also ask that you consider including the Virgin Islands in the Denton Act. It turns out that we are not. So military airplanes cannot be utilized to move humanitarian aid to our Virgin Islands after disasters. We need to be able to use your military planes so that individuals in the mainland who want to send supplies are able to do so. Those would be my requests. Of course, if you allow me more time, I'll say that FEMA should, as well as SBA, consider including non-English proficient individuals in the teams that they send to the territory. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought FEMA did that. We got a lot of Spanish speakers down in our area, but I'll certainly look into that as well. All right, Ms. Plaskett, we'll let you do, and then we'll finish this round of questioning and go into our federal panel.
I wanted to ask if I have three written testimonies that I'd like to include in the record. One is from Virginia Claremont with Clean Sweep Frederickstead. The other is presented by Mrs. Ruby Simmons-Isanison here on St. Thomas. And then the third is by Senator Janelle Sorrow, a senator in the 32nd legislature.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. And before I ask the questions, there was just a couple of pieces in this testimony that I wanted to give on the record before I ask these questions. One, of course, is a very moving testimony and statement that was given by Ms. Simmons-Isanison talking about the evacuees, which has been discussed by the witnesses here this morning by the senators. She says, in the State of the Territory address presented on January 22nd, 2018, Governor Kenneth E. Mapp noted that 682 persons were evacuated for medical reasons, and some 248 still remain on the mainland at that time. Since then, I have asked, what happened to the other 434 persons? How many of them came home in the cargo section of the plane? I can tell you specifically about the ones I know of, including my son-in-law, the aunts of two of my stepdaughters, a very dear friend, and the relatives of other persons with whom I've spoken or whose stories have been reported in the news. There are so many people that we lost during these hurricanes, but she gives specifically the names of Sergeant Aaron Hodge Sr., Ashley Frett Sr., Cynthia Thomas, Arroyo Carrera Rivera, and Elmarina Palmer, all of whom died after the hurricanes in the states as medical evacuees. And I think that's important for us to remember that the effects of hurricanes here in the Virgin Islands continued well after the actual hurricane took place. And one of the things that she points out that I'd like to then present a question to the witnesses is that she talks about going to VITEMA, which is the Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency, seeking information about where individuals were after leaving the hospital. Were they in Puerto Rico? Were they in St. Croix? Where were they located? And for quite a period of time, many individuals could not be found. And she says she was able to find out from Sergeant Hodge that when he was in Puerto Rico, the situation that he faced there was really not a very good one. When he was in Puerto Rico, she quotes, I'm quoting, "He told me that drinking water was being rationed. He was being given water in a container the size of a small fruit cup. That's about 3 ounces. This is what was given to a full-grown adult. He was eventually evacuated to Atlanta, Georgia, where unfortunately he passed away." I would like to ask the senators these questions, and Senator Osaro also talks about the situation on St. John, probably being more dire than the situation on the other islands. And she talks about the distribution sites, which Senator O'Reilly also gave us some indication about how important they were. And my question to you all really relates to the relationship and the amount of communication and the coordination between the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the local one. Knowing that we are dealing with 2 Category 5 hurricanes and that our own resources are very restrained. FEMA has been at this for innumerable years. Do you feel that there was sufficient support coming from FEMA to pick up the gaps initially, knowing where there were things, or was in fact, how did that work? Was that done correctly? Are there ways that it could be improved, the coordination between FEMA and the local agencies that are in place? How can we work on that better? Senator Jackson?
It's a very good question, and we spent a tremendous amount of time in the EOC in VITEMA and had the opportunity to actually witness and to be engaged with the process of response. And I have to say, on both sides, we need to work on the response from a natural disaster in the territory. I think given the fact that we are islands, we're outside of the continental United States, and that likewise FEMA's history in the territory, of course, Hurricane Hugo and Hurricane Marilyn gave the territory some experience as it relates to FEMA and what is necessary for emergency response. And who would imagine that the Virgin Islands in its centennial year would be struck with 2 Category 5 hurricanes 12 days apart? Who prepares for that? And how does an emergency entity like VITEMA with limited resources really rise to the occasion of responding to the disaster? They themselves were not fully prepared. And that likewise FEMA representatives coming into the territory with the lack of communications, driving around this territory, most time lost, not having a local scout or representative with them as they were going into these various neighborhoods, was very challenging. And I do think that we really need to revisit how FEMA and the territory protocols are put in place for a response in light of these 2 hurricanes, and likewise, most recently, the tsunami notification to the territory that created panic to our residents we need to be prepared, fully prepared, and likewise how our relationship with the federal government hitting the ground is to be done, because it was very chaotic.
Did anyone else want to add something to that?
I'd like to, Congresswoman Plaskett, I believe that we should consider training a cadre of local residents who are now currently working with FEMA. Train them so that they too are able to be deployed to other areas in the United States that are hit. And so that when, not if, but when this territory is again a victim of a disaster, that those FEMA trained local residents are deployed here because they are more familiar with the territory. I also felt that FEMA took a back seat and allowed VITEMA to take the lead. I am not sure, and I know that that is the protocol. I know that we are in charge, but I'm not sure that we can be in charge of solving our own disasters when our own homes are affected.
When you're in the middle of it yourself.
Yes. If you are in the middle of the disaster, it is difficult to really see. And so FEMA would take a step back and allow the local government to make the decisions. And I would prefer to see a real partnership, a side-by-side relationship where best practices are recommended to the local government so that VITEMA is empowered, because it had to respond to disasters on all 4 islands.
Thank you. I know that I had heated and very colorful discussions with Brock Long because FEMA, of course, we know in the federal government, only gives what is requested. But if you don't know what to request and you are dealing with the magnitude of disaster, it's difficult to make those kind of assessments on the ground. And there needs to be, we end up hiring companies to assist us in making the request. There should be natural liaison and working with FEMA it's kind of like they're almost hiding the money or hiding the ball, and you have to figure out which hand it's in to ask the right thing. So thank you. And I know that that's also frustrating for the FEMA workers who are here on the ground, who want to do the right thing, who have empathy and want to be a part of the recovery, but they have to wait from what the okays that they're getting in Washington. And if you would, Senator Roach.
Thank you, Delegate Plaskett. I think we have to consider the need for adjustment of policies and processes both locally and federally. In our case, we have a statute that gives the governor complete authority to deal with the federal structures in a state of emergency. He's the point person for FEMA. He gets to determine whether a state of emergency should be extended and to what the length of time that can be renewed. And I think we ought to look at that structure. I think if the reality of the persons living offshore the United States, and in particular the residents of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, that it is time to also consider new structures. And I believe that FEMA should have a permanent presence in the territory, that they should literally be here year-round, and I believe that that would assist in having better relationships with them and the local agencies. That would lead to a more timely response in the case of natural disasters, and that we are living in extraordinary times that call for extraordinary solutions that we might not have considered before. Thank you.
And I know we're finishing this, but I would like to also place into the record another testimony, written testimony, a statement for the record that was given to me by Megan Enright. She is a resident of St. John and has been working with Love City Strong and Love for Love City Foundation on the recovery efforts in St. John.
Without objection, so ordered. And I'd like to thank our panel for being here and answering our questions and providing both the written and verbal testimony. We could go on like this, but we do have a panel of federal folks that we would like to talk to as well. So again, thank you all for being here. It's been great visiting your island. In order to allow us time to set up for the next panel, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
All right, everybody, we only have a few minutes left here for this Monday evening on Fox News Now. Gonna let you look at Santa Monica Pier. I have never been there, but after looking at this picture, I certainly want to because it looks absolutely gorgeous. Myself, Pilar Arias, and Mike Page hope to see you again here tomorrow. Everybody have a great evening. We'll see you soon.